been a pleasure over the last 4 years being able to represent everyone. Currently, I'm in the process of filing my legislation for the upcoming legislature, January 18th. In addition to the legislation that I will be filing, there's also several initiatives that will be coming up this session that the Senate President has outlined in her opening address for the session. One thing she identified was looking more again at loopholes in welfare that we can look at and trying to make corrections to. We're probably going to be looking at some gun legislation, seeing what Connecticut has in place compared to what we have, to see if there's anything we have to address as far as waiting periods, enhancing the CORI authority for police departments. And the other big issue, I think, is going to be infrastructure, transportation, which the governor just came out with yesterday, outlining several proposals and revenue sources, how they want to pay for $13 billion worth of infrastructure over the next 10 years. They didn't choose the specific revenue source that they want to use, but they did. They outlined several options that they are looking at. One was increasing the sales tax, I think to 7.75%. Another was looking at increasing the income tax to 5.95%. Another was they wanted to create a payroll tax here in Massachusetts. They were looking at a gas tax increase of 30 cents, or maybe looking at I think he had floated this before. Remember that per mile type tax, where your gas tax would be based on the mileage that you drive. And another, they were looking at toll increases and also the expansion of tolls to possibly Route 93, 84, Route 3. So those are some of the larger issues, and also the MBTA, Mass Bay Transit Authority. They want to look at finally rectifying that. You know, they passed a bailout. We passed a bailout last year, and I was actually within the minority who voted against the bailout. It was about $140 million to bail the MBTA out, but there was no long-term plan on how to resolve their operating deficit. So they're coming up with a plan for that. They're supposed to be releasing that plan. But one problem I had with that is that not just with addressing the current planned operating deficit, they're also looking at expansions. They're calling for an expansion of the Green Line from Boston to the South Shore, which would cost about I think they had $1.8 billion. Then there was another expansion that was a $600 million allocation. So I'm hoping that when we look at that, we can maybe stabilize and get their budget in control before we start looking at expanding programs. But so those are some of the large issues that we have that are going to be coming down. I think as of right now, we've got 60 bills, a little over 60 bills that we're going to be filing. Just to highlight a few of them, as we've drafted legislation, the majority of the legislation comes from meeting with the constituents in the area, town officials throughout the district. And also, people know I also now represent the town of Northbridge. So we've had the opportunity during the last campaign, to actually get out there and meet them, to try to get their ideas. Although I will be filing several pieces of legislation, I would like to talk about a few that I believe not only benefit the communities of the Second Worcester District, but also across the Commonwealth. A bill that I'm filing is to look at automatically reducing the sales tax in Massachusetts, which I guess the timing of this isn't good, seeing that the governor just came out with his revenue proposals. This bill is actually modeled after the 2002 law that established the automatic income tax trigger reduction. And basically what happens with the income tax is that, you know how last January we reduced it from 5.3 to 5.25? That was based on the revenues, the state meeting certain revenue benchmarks. And when we had over $1 billion in revenue benchmarks that were being met, that triggered a reduction in the income tax. So that's basically the model that I was looking at for this bill. So that when certain revenues come in, because we don't want any reduction in taxes to result in us having to look at local aid cuts. or reducing any support that we give to our cities and towns. The bill would direct the Treasurer and the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, in consultation with the Department of Revenue and the Senate Ways and Means and House Ways and Means Committee, to study the feasibility of establishing a schedule for an automatic reduction in the sales tax to 5% if certain thresholds in revenue growth are exceeded. Again, it's nice to reduce taxes. We all want to see a reduction in tax, but we also be mindful that there are basic services that need to be provided and support that needs to be provided to our cities and towns. Okay. I've also filed legislation to assist our public safety and public health officials to combat the deadly rise in the use of what's called K2 and synthetic marijuana.
Synthetic marijuana is a natural herb that is sprayed with synthetic chemicals meant to mimic the effects of cannabis. However, there have been numerous cases of these products of causing users to be violent and aggressive. The legislation will amend existing law to add the definition of K2 and synthetic marijuana, which in any form of cannabis, including synthetic compounds or structures that are molecularly similar to cannabis.
I've also refiled legislation to assist innocent home buyers who have been wronged unfairly by the mortgage foreclosure legislation.
In the case called U.S. Bank versus Ibanez, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled that 2 foreclosures were invalid since the plaintiffs in the case failed to demonstrate that they had acquired fee simple title to these properties by purchasing them at the foreclosure. This bill does not protect banks who practice predatory mortgage lending or bring further harm to homeowners who have been foreclosed, but aims to protect the right of new homeowners who have purchased previously foreclosed property.
We actually had a very good reception from the Senate President's office and the Housing Committee and even the Attorney General's office as far as this bill last year. But with the cases that were pending in the courts, they wanted to hold off on any sort of forward movement of this until those cases were decided. So now that the cases have been decided upon, this is another issue. Housing foreclosures was another issue that the Senate President actually brought up during her address for the new session. So hopefully we can that. This legislation is about improving the marketability of property titled foreclosures properties, but also barring untimely litigation. And it protects homeowners. The bill provides a reasonable 90 days after a mortgage foreclosure sale for the foreclosed debtor to challenge a foreclosure sale before an innocent bona fide purchaser is irreparably prejudiced by a successful challenge.
The bill also protects existing homeowners of foreclosed properties from being unable to sell or refinance their homes as a result of the Ibanez decision. This bill will help ensure that our communities will continue to have growth in home purchases and not harmfully affecting cities and towns in the Commonwealth by allowing existing homeowners to purchase new homes. If any resident should have any concerns or ideas, or if we can be of any assistance, please do not hesitate to call Senator Moore's office at 617-722-1485.
And again, I just want to also say, I just want to thank everyone over the last 4 years and last session for their support and their input in giving me ideas and concepts that I can pursue in the legislature to benefit everyone. But those are just some examples right now of what we've looked at, what we're looking at. Again, we've roughly got about 60 bills that we've filed.
Okay, there's one thing that I skipped over at the beginning that you mentioned, and some of the points that the governor brought up yesterday, was the tolls, increasing the tolls on the turnpike. And I've heard rumor out there that there's plan to cut back on the tolls, perhaps in working more like the state of New Jersey, in that you have overhead readings and don't require personnel. It reads the plate to the, you know.
Yeah, that's
cars and so on.
yeah, the electronic tolling.
Yeah.
And actually that was part of, if you look at the press release that was put out, that actually was part of the governor's proposal, was to look at investing in electronic tolling. There was even one proposal that I think came out 2 weeks ago, that a private developer had contacted the Commonwealth or the administration about maybe making an investment where they would fund certain portions of reconstruction of Route 3, or with the state agreeing to put in the electronic tolling. So that is one thing. I haven't heard anything about reducing the tolls, but I've heard, what I have heard is maybe looking at from some legislators, expansion of the tolls to 93.
Additional roads,
right, to additional roads, or maybe reinstituting the tolls back at exit 1 or 2 on the turnpike, which was removed, I think, back in the Weld administration. And there's also the one on exit 17, which in Newton. You know, and there's a legitimate concern, because we have people from New Hampshire coming into Massachusetts, into Boston, every day. And unless they're buying gas here in Massachusetts, they're really not paying to help maintain our roadways. Yet, you go into New Hampshire, within the first 5 to 10 miles, you're getting hit with a toll. So, and there's got to be some fair equity. There's got to be some toll equity here. Right now, central Massachusetts and Western Mass, we can't be bearing the brunt of continuing to pay off the big dig debt, which a big portion of the MBTA debt and the transportation debt was the big dig debt being transferred over to these agencies. So there is that problem, but again, it shouldn't fall on central Massachusetts and people outside of this, the 128 belt.
True. Last week, Governor Deval Patrick announced legislation that's been filed to place a freeze on the unemployment insurance rates and lower health insurance contributions for employers in the Commonwealth. Can you tell us a little about this legislation?
Yeah, on Tuesday, January 8th, Governor Deval Patrick announced a bill has been filed for the current legislative session, which will freeze the unemployment insurance rate for employers and eliminates the fair share contribution program, an issue which I've worked closely on with the administration over the last 3.5, 4 years to correct. If I think people remember, over the last year I got this legislation passed. This had to do with the health insurance, the coverage that small businesses are required. Since my first term as state senator in 2009, I've worked with the administration to eliminate the fair share contribution program, stating the negative impact the program has on many small businesses in the Commonwealth.
Enacted as part of Massachusetts' 2006 healthcare reform law, the program mandates that employers with 11 or more full-time equivalent employees make such a fair and reasonable contribution towards the healthcare costs of the employees, or pay a $295 assessment per full-time equivalent employee. However, the Federal Affordable Care Act has a similar provision effective in 2014 for employers with over 50 employees, which could result in a potential double penalty for businesses of the Commonwealth.
The elimination of the fair share contribution program in Massachusetts will help bring relief to many businesses throughout the state and help continue much needed job growth. Further freezing the unemployment rate insurance contribution for 2013 at E will save employers an estimated $500 million.
This marks the 4th year of freeze of the UI rate has been proposed, and if passed, the administration and legislature will have saved employers in the Commonwealth approximately $1.7 billion over the last 4 years alone. The bill will also eliminate the Medical Security Program by the end of this calendar year. The Medical Security Program provides qualified individuals receiving unemployment insurance benefits, health coverage, but will not be necessary with the enactment of the Affordable Care Act.
Through the Affordable Care Act, individuals currently enrolled under the Medical Security Program will be able to access subsidized health coverage through our existing state insurance programs, like Mass Health, and those offered at the Health Connector.
The State House has done a terrific job in creating programs that help residents of the Commonwealth better understand their state government and promote civic engagement. Are there any similar programs coming up for residents to participate in?
Yeah, it's very important for residents to understand how their state government works and to participate in civic engagement process. That is why I'm pleased to announce that the 70th Citizens Legislative Seminar will be held this spring on Tuesday, March 12th and Wednesday, March 13th from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the State House.
The Citizens Legislature Seminar aims to better educate the public on the Commonwealth's legislative process. Established in 1976 through a collaborative effort of the Massachusetts Senate and the University of Massachusetts, this two-day seminar features presentations by senators and staff on aspects of the day-to-day experience of legislators in Massachusetts. Topics will include history and process of legislature, the parliamentary role of the clerk of the Senate, and the future of the legislature.
The Citizens Legislative Seminar culminated with a simulated legislative hearing and Senate session where participants are invited to use what they have learned and participate as a senator in the Senate chamber and have a first-hand experience of the legislative process. I encourage all residents of the district to consider participating in this wonderful program, but you have to reach out to us quickly because the program openings are very limited.
Any interested resident of the 2nd Worcester District is invited to call Senator Moore's office at 617-722-1485 on Monday, February 4th, in order to be nominated for selection. Participating in the seminar is on a first-come, first-served basis.
It's actually is a very interesting program. I've had the opportunity, I think, the last 3 years to actually go and speak and meet people, and it really does. You get a first-hand description from the speakers on what it's like to be a legislator, the workings of the legislature. I mean, you hear on TV what they tell you how it works, or you can read in the books the process. But to get it firsthand on everyone on your interaction, how important it is that you can actually work with the other legislative branch, the House and Senate, how closely you really need to work together with your colleagues, and just the process, the filing of bills, what goes into drawing up legislation, and the different rules that take place on how you want to pass legislation, how you want to block legislation. So it's an interesting program.
I don't know if you want to discuss any of it on your trip, your recent trip that you made. I believe that was on behalf of the legislature or the Senate.
Yeah, they had a trade mission, so I was actually able to go on. We were able to go over to Israel, and they had Israel is actually very big in water innovation, removing salt from water, reutilizing wastewater, and it's amazing when you land. You think you're going into a desert, and the vegetation that they have there, it's amazing. The wastewater that is used is actually piped to through the ground. They take it and they actually use the desert where they pour it back into the sand, and they have tanks and structures underneath that they use the sand to further filter the water. Then the water is then brought back and it's sold to the local farmers and agriculture industry at a discount rate. And so it's put right back into the system. And looking at the surrounding area, you can see how, obviously everyone knows how limited the water is in the Middle East. It was quite interesting to see how the process that they use. The first plant we went to made me think of the Blackstone Valley Wastewater Treatment Plant. But then you see how the additional processes that they use, and it was quite interesting. And we actually also had the opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister for the Palestinian Authority. We met with some of a colonel for the Israeli Defense Forces, and we met with the Knesset, which is the Israeli legislature. So it was actually quite interesting.
That concludes what we had for topics for today. If there's nothing else to add, we look forward to our February forum.
Yeah. And if there's any suggestions anyone has on topics they'd like us to discuss, please feel free to call my office, or I just want to reach out to Bob and let him know. We'll gladly.
And again, just for anyone who might not have written it down that might be interested in going, the telephone number at Senator Moore's office is 617-722-1485, and the reservations need to be made by Monday, February 4th.
Oh, and actually, if there are any small businesses that should be watching the show, or business owners, if you want to call my office, we actually have a forum going on tomorrow morning with the Blackstone Valley Chamber. We've got the Ken Brown and the Mass Office of Trade and International Trade coming in, and they've got several of the speakers coming in on various programs that they offer for economic development. It's called the STEP program, and this agency deals with trying to provide small businesses or manufacturing businesses in Massachusetts with export opportunities to try to enhance their abilities to reach out and sell their products. So please feel free to call my office at 617-722-1485. And again, that's going to be tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a good day.